This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to AFLAC for supporting I Love Black People Radio.
Greetings and welcome to another wonderful episode of I Love Black People. Thank you for all our listeners who continue to give us the support that allows us to share and to spread the love. As you all know, that we have our startup, I Love Black People, and one of the key aspects of what we're doing is literally connecting our people all over the diaspora in order to protect each other from the racism and what we call Afrophobia. And Afrophobia is the irrational fear or hatred of people perceived to be of African descent. And as a co-founder of a tech startup, as you can imagine, trying to do your best to do something with your skills that can help our community is something that I do every day, as well as with our co-founder, Mr. Christopher Mapendera. We both went to Howard University, so happy belated Charter Day, HU, and we both are engineers and have had life experiences that have pointed us in the direction of coming up with literally a safety net to protect our people from the harms and humiliations of racism and Afrophobia. And the context of this is based on the Green Book that was started by Victor Green, which literally created a directory of Black friendly places throughout Jim Crow, what you would consider apartheid in America from the 1930s to the 1960s. And it allowed our people to be able to travel without being harmed by legalized crimes against humanity, if you will, with the racism that took place under the segregation or Jim Crow or apartheid. So we've taken that model and realized that the issues that we still face are real. And as much as racism no longer has a sign on the door or a law in place, that this is still something that actually harms and impacts the daily lives of the 1.5 billion people. We are 1.5 billion people of African descent. And which means that we need to, if deliberate things are done to harm us, we must do deliberate things to protect ourselves. And so often I hear people talk about, elections and legislation and all those things related to electoral politics. But I think one of the things we've noticed that you can't legislate people's character or behavior in a way that can literally stop them from doing the things. You can definitely create laws that when people break them, they can be held accountable. But in systems that are already systemically racist, systemically Afrophobic, it ends up creating a situation where those remedies oftentimes aren't as effective as they pretend to be. So for us, we say, look, how can we do something? We're not going to wait for an elections. We're not going to wait for politicians or politricks. What can we do as good people of the world and actually create something that actually does something different? And so using technology, we have a way of actually connecting people in ways we couldn't in the past. And connecting, oftentimes we think about social media, internet, we've used it for things that aren't necessarily always helpful. There's more things being done on TikTok and some of these other social media platforms that aren't actually helpful. And so we were very clear that just as much as TikTok and WhatsApp and these other platforms have developers, we have developers. And our interest is to take what we know as developers and engineers and use it to create things that aren't harmful but actually are helpful. Now, again, on many of my conversations with you, we talk about how uh, capitalism and colonialism, these are very predatory systems, right? So oftentimes, unfortunately, some of our best and brightest are pulled into companies that are focused on items or issues that are not necessarily helpful to our folks, but yet people make a lot of money doing it. So what we've said is that we have developers and we're just as smart, but we're going to use our skills to actually be helpful. And that's not to say that we don't need resources. Of course, we need resources in order to keep the startup going and the work that we're doing alive. But we look at it as how not how we make the most money for the little good, but how to make the most good for the least amount of funds so that we can literally focus on actually making sure our community is safe. And no matter how much money our brothers and sisters had in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or wealthy people in our community often are attacked. And we even talk about it from the standpoints of just how black success is crucified. How even now you look at throughout the media and I mean news and whatnot, if you look at the focus of who's oftentimes made a spectacle out of, it's disproportionately in many instances our community. And you would think there are more black uh, uh, artists in the Hollywood than there are others. But because of disproportionate how we're represented it in some of these negative images. So if we are being presented in the media, in social media, in a negative light deliberately, then we need to make sure that we deliberately show the truth of who we are and the positivity. And we're right now launching a campaign called Love and Protect Our Children, where we literally are focusing on the positive things that we're doing in our community and using this as a model to that literally stop youth gun violence. We're very focused on literally the objective is to make sure that young people in our communities aren't murdered by guns. And these are things that we can actually stop. We may not be able to cure all the illnesses in the world, but we can make sure our young people can grow up into adulthood without being shot with guns. And so the work that we're doing and organizing right now around Howard University, and again, as you know, that I actually attended Tuskegee University and transferred to Howard University. So I have nothing but love for HBCUs. But we think this is a great model that we can actually use, that every HBCU, no matter where it is, should be a safe place for young Black and gifted people so that we don't have to worry about our brightest being harmed. So using Howard is a great starting place. And this is in Washington, D.C. If you really think about uh, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, DMV, it's probably have one of the highest populations of educated Black folks, as well as diverse Black folks from all over, as well as those who have attained a certain level of financial wealth. And in an area like that, you would think that should be the safest place, the most wonderful place for young Black children to grow up. And again, not only should that be the case, it's up to us to make it that case. No one else, we're the adults in the room. We're the ones who have the responsibility for our children. And we're not going to blame young people for the community that they live in. We are, as the adults, have to be the ones who take responsibility. And that's not to say, again, I'm talking to you as a co-founder of a tech startup. So we need to, I got a day job. We got to make sure that our app works and we're able to build the safety net. But what we've decided to do, and we see this as being very relevant, this green book concept, identifying these safe places. uh, identifying Pan-African schools that are a part of our 8 categories. All of this is great because it's important that we have safe places, places that are treat us well. But one of the biggest issues is this gun violence. So we're making sure that we reach out to as many of you to say, look, we're going to use the work we're doing to create safe spaces and identify safe spaces to also help with ending youth gun violence. And we're using our app as we were building it as a way to communicate with those who are interested in helping us in this Love and Protect Our Children campaign. And with the work we're doing, we're literally elevating the work that's already being done in many communities by organizations that are on the ground and elevating their work. We're also making sure that the people who are doing the work, the specific people, making sure we elevate them and make sure that people realize that this is something that we're not only we're doing already, but we need to make sure that what's hot with the upcoming trend in 2024 is not just some silly, you know, I want to say dance. I like to dance, so I'm not going to call all dancing silly. Some dance silly, I guess. But what we're really talking about is how do we make sure that people know being here to protect our children is something to aspire and it's something that's important for all of us to take on as the thing, the it thing, the next hot thing to do is making sure our children don't get killed by guns. And that being said, part of this campaign as we develop it is literally making sure we highlight some of the young people that are already doing work supporting other young people. So much of what we're talking about, again, we have tools that we never had before. So to be able to bring our brothers and sisters together using these tools for something positive is our focus. And we'll definitely make sure with the I Love Black People with our radio show that we make sure that we bring on guests that actually are doing the work right now, make sure they get their shine, their spotlight, as well as inform you as to what they're doing and encourage people to get involved. One of the things that in talking to some folks, even about some of the classism in our community, about how some folks say, well, look, my children aren't the ones that are going to get shot because I have them in these special organizations and programs. And we think that no matter if you have children or if your children are fine, that we as a generation, as a society, is unacceptable that our children fall victim to being harmed with gun violence. Again, even when you see things, some of these violent attacks or even this with these carjackings and things, something is being done wrong to our children if they're involved in anything like those violent activities. Those things are just something that we need to make sure that we do our best to make sure that we never allow anyone to put our children in a situation where they're literally being harmed to the point where they feel like they have to go out and carjack someone. These are things that we as a community should, make sure it's unacceptable that our children go through that. So it's important that we make sure that any of the things that we're doing are done in a way that we can protect our kids from literally being subjected to the forces or the people or the influences that would make them um, go out and carjack somebody. And again, I'm not asking any of us to become experts on carjacking, but whatever we think about carjacking, we have to know that our children haven't been carjacking uh, since the beginning of time or beginning of our time in this United States or even for the last 50 years. This whole thing about carjacking is something very new and it's not who we are. It's not our history. And oftentimes I hear people talk about being poor or uneducated. Again, as black people in America, our ancestors were enslaved. And even after being enslaved, our folks didn't go around murdering folks and doing these bad things that you hear about lately. So again, I think, and I've been all over the world. I don't think people who are poor are inherently violent and prone to obtain illegal guns and shoot people. If we see those things happening, something is gravely wrong, and we need to do something gravely right to change it. And with that being said, we're not asking anyone to go outside of their comfort zone of skills, but we all have something we can contribute. And this is not even money. Our time probably is our most valuable asset we do have. And, we did everything that they told us to do. We went to school, went to grad school, we got these jobs, we did all these things to make ourselves more appealing to the corporate, folks that to hire us and to work with. Well, we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to make sure our young people are protected. And when I say our young people, this is not by direct blood kin, but literally because it's our community. And as the adults in the community, we have an obligation. And I do hear people say, well, what about the politicians? The politicians are definitely, some are great. I think like a Muriel Bowser, awesome. And some aren't so great. Whoever you don't like, I may like. And so I don't get into all the names, but I will just say this: we're not going to leave it to one sister or brother in a a political position, to be the one who's going to fix everything. We definitely want to hold all politicians accountable. But I always share with folks that the accountability starts with the mirror. When you wake up in the morning, that person you look at that's probably the most honest picture you're gonna get all day, and that's you. And so before I put another person's name in my mouth, I want to make sure I'm doing everything possible as a human being to be held accountable for the things that are happening around us. And whatever God you pray to, we don't here to push religion, but we all have a calling. We're here for a reason, and we must fulfill that calling or betray it. So again, when we see things going on like in our communities, where you like something like violent crime with guns and people cars being taken, that's a sign of something deeply wrong. And we have to take the responsibility in our community to do the best that we can do in that. And these are our babies, these are our children. If we allow some folks to deal with our children, they may not have the same love for our children as we do. So they'll talk about the issue of gun violence, and they might be trying to put more of our young people in prisons. And we know that the prison industrial complex has never been useful or helpful for our people. And if anything, we've been targeted. But then on the flip side, when you have laws and situations where young people are, commit crimes and do things, and then they're just thrown back into the community where they are being preyed upon, where someone is touching them or doing something where they feel like they must do some of these awful things. So we can't just let our children, be harmed and touched and these negative things done with them and think everything's going to work out fine. There's a consequence. If folks are molesting our children and harming them and coercing them, then we got to do something to protect them. And again, I'm not saying that these young folks don't have agency, but I'm not going to hold 16-year-olds accountable for what happens in our community. Now, again, that doesn't mean when they do something, we got to make sure there's a consequence. But we need to know that our young people are going to make mistakes, and we need to be there to make sure that whatever they're doing, that it's not being they're not being coerced or someone's trying to harm them. And that's all our children. So when we think about the area like DMV or DC area, if any place we should be able to get it right to make sure our young people are protected, it's got to be here because we have the most amount of resources here, the most amount of education here. So we got to be thoughtful. So it's important that as we share what we're doing on this show as well, you'll see it in social media on our website. Come join us on the journey. I try to make sure I tell people that the journey is more important than the destination. We are clear that we can end youth gun violence. Our young people have not been violent or been in these situations, but for maybe less than 50 years. This is a very new phenomenon for our culture and for our people. If you think about years ago, no one would ever have thought when you mention young black kids, that you're talking about some villain of violence, a villain of violence. They're not. It's unnatural for young people to go around doing these things. Somebody and something is being done to them deliberately, and we got to do something deliberate to stop it and protect them. And technology, again, allows us to share in a way and scale. And our I Love Black People Safe Places app will be a conduit for those conversations and organizing against this gun violence. So make sure you download the app. It's on Google Play as well as the Apple Store. I Love Black People. Download the app, and let's get together and let's start to work. Now, we're still doing different versions of our build. So again, that goes with the tech folks, and we're always more than welcome to join us if you got some tech skills. We're always open for developers to join us. I think the framework we're using is Flutter, and Flutter is something that's very useful with mobile apps. So that's something that's very key, and we're always willing and open to have folks join us to on the tech side and on the community side. If you're in the DMV area and you're interested in ending youth gun violence, or you know people who are already doing the work, please share our information with them at info@ iloveblackpeople.com. We want to get as many folks who are already doing the good work to make sure that we elevate the work they're doing in order to make sure that we get more people to support that work. We think it's important for all of us, though, to do something. Like, again, we're definitely all busy. So I will never say or speak on behalf of any one of our listeners to say somehow we're just sitting here. Many of you right now are probably either driving or doing something as you're listening to this episode. So we understand how busy we are. But if everybody does a little bit, if it's an hour a week or something that can be contributed to ending youth gun violence, then that's what we're asking everyone, as many people, to do. And a part of that is also, as I mentioned about the TikToks and these other platforms, we're literally also looking at how our people can focus on this content, making sure that we're um, elevating and supporting our young people and people who are promoting positive things that are being done in our community and positive uh, uh, history about our people. We need to make sure that the good not only outweighs the bad, but make sure that the good is hot, that is attractive, that it's done in a way that, again, is appealing. Malcolm X said, "Our people are thirsty, and we'll drink out of a dirty glass. But if presented with the clean, we'll drink out of the clean first." So we want to do our best to make sure that the content and the things that are being done that are positive, that we're doing a better job with elevating that and sharing that and making that the thing to do and to be. So much of what we're doing is literally taking what's already happening in our communities and elevating it, because that's, at the end of the day, those are the things that just really validate in many ways you're not alone. And we want to be able to duplicate this work, like I said, around the HBCUs, because again, many of these HBCUs, as you all know, have some of the next brightest of our generation. We don't need our young people worried about somebody trying to hurt them. We want to make sure that our young people are focused on, breakthroughs and dealing with healthcare issues like cancer and diabetes, and how to deal with this global warming. And we want our young people focused on the big issues in the world. And we, as the adults, want to make sure that they're all safe and protected to do that. And all of that is done literally with us connecting around the issue of youth gun violence in a way that allows us to connect each other using the technology that we have available, as well as being able to realize that our young people are that valuable. That's why we say love and protect. This love is demonstrated by our behavior. So we want to make sure that that behavior that we are behind in so many ways is the behavior of people who are concerned, who are very serious. And what more important thing than we have that we brought into the world is our children. So we definitely want to make sure we get everybody focused on that and give us the opportunity to share as many of the things that we're doing that's actually helpful to you out there. Another big thing that we're doing, again, as you know, we have the Black Blockchain Summit that comes up. Want to give a shout out also to Tuskegee University. As you know, we have our big push to raise $1 million for the. We are definitely interested in making sure that as many of you who are interested can participate in the work we're doing with the Love and Protect Our Children campaign. So make sure you check that out on our website, iloveblackpeople.com. We have hoodies now. You can get your hoodie. You can get your sign for your window with the Love and Protect Our Children. And we definitely want to make sure, without anyone talking about elections or what have you, we want to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable. And with that being said, as I always leave and just in gratitude, I leave in gratitude. I am because we are. Thank you so much for your work.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to Aflac for supporting I Love Black People Radio.